Everybody, how's
Good
everybody
morning.
doing on this wonderful day? The last time we met was November, and now we are officially going into spring based upon the weather forecast. Are we not? A few new people here in the room. What I'd like to do before we go into our agenda is just to go around the room, have everybody introduce themselves, and also to our guests who are seated beside me. And again, I'm Philip Berry. I'm the acting chair of the Construction Fund. Maybe we'll go around this way.
I'm Iris Weintraub. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Facilities Planning and Construction, and I'm also the Executive Director of the Construction Fund.
Rick Schaefer, Counsel to the Construction Fund and also to CUNY.
Howard Altrillard, Deputy Executive Director for the Construction Fund.
I'm Bob Lemieux, Executive Director of Design and Construction at CUNY.
Jeffrey Weinstein, Director of Procurement Services.
John Antonelli, Director of Financial Compliance for Construction Fund. I'm Mike Stagnos, Director of Construction for the Monetary Authority.
I'm Nancy Nichols, Assistant to the Fund.
Judy Burktown, Deputy Vice Chancellor.
Vincent Green, Director of Vendor Responsibility and Integrity.
Jennifer Friedman, Director of Public-Private Partnerships. Gwen Perlman, Director of Capital Budget, CUNY.
I'm Noel Hankin, a trustee of the Construction Fund.
I'm Marcella Maxwell, a trustee of the Construction Fund.
I'm Kay Conway, faculty member from the MCC.
Victor Nair, Controller for the Construction Fund.
Gafur Tuaku, University Student Senate Chairperson.
Okay, thank you very much. And I don't know, we're not showing the picture of the people in Albany, and so I don't know who was there. Can we just show them? I'm looking at myself here, which is not necessary.
Sorry, it's Zach Scarcali at the State Budget Division. And Bernard Cummings from the State Budget Division.
Okay.
Are you seeing us, Guy?
Can you see us?
Zach, can you see us?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, if it can be fixed, that's fine. If not, we'll follow.
Okay, thank you. And can you hear me? I don't have a mic in front of me, but can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome. How's the weather up there? I was just up there the other day. Seemed pretty nice.
It's mild, yeah.
That's how we like it up there in Albany. What I'd like to do is the first action item is the approval of the minutes of the November 10th meeting, 2011. Are there any questions about the minutes at all?
So moved.
So moved. You approve the minutes? Any amendments? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I do want to note that we do have a quorum, by the way, so I just want to state that for the record, that we do have a quorum, so that way we can continue with our proceedings. What I'd like to do now is to go into action number 2, which would be the resolution of the Construction Fund authorizing a consulting contract for the design and design services during construction of the interdisciplinary performance computational center on the College of Staten Island. Do we need to halt until you get them connected so that way they'll be?
The old system wasn't good enough.
Yeah, right.
While we're waiting, there's food.
We do have stuff? Why don't we, we're on a natural break, why don't we refresh ourselves? We're on temporary adjournment.
We're going into item 6.
Before we took a trip into the stratosphere, we're now back on land, on terra firma, and I am at the point of resolution for the construction fund authorizing a consultant contract for the design and design services during construction of the interdisciplinary high-performance computational center on the College of Staten Island. I guess things are okay. The last time I said those words, we went off into stratosphere. But resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Construction Fund authorized the Executive Director to execute a consultant contract with the firm of Henningsen, Durham, and Richardson Architecture and Engineering for professional design and design services during construction as required for the Interdisciplinary High Performance Computational Center on the College of Staten Island, which is CUNY Project SI-CUCF 0111. The contract cost shall be chargeable to the construction fund for an amount not to exceed $8 million, and the contract shall be subject to approval as to form by the fund's general counsel. And this proposed firm was selected in accordance with Section C2B, request for proposals for the fund's guidelines for procurement contracts. So if the Executive Director can just enlighten us a little on this, please.
As a result of the College of Staten Island's master plan, as is usual with all of the master plans that we engage in, it always comes up with new projects and deficits in space that we've identified on campuses. And so is the case now with the College of Staten Island. We're very excited about this project because it's going to really, I think, serve two sides of the university. First and foremost, this building will be a computational research building, which will service all of CUNY, not just the College of Staten Island, as well as it's going to consolidate a number of departments within the college into this new building. So the mathematics department, of course the computer science, engineering science, and physics will be consolidated into this 175,000 square foot building on the campus. In addition, the building is going to have classrooms and lecture halls and laboratories and academic space for the as well as other spaces that the researchers can use. This will be a project that will be managed by CUCF, as is the pattern that we have followed over the last few years. Any new projects that have popped up, we are now managing those projects, not only from a design side, but from a construction side as well. We are, this is a firm that has never done, am I right, Bob, has never done work for CUNY before, and we are really attempting to reach out to other architects throughout the country to come up with some new, fresh ideas for the university. So we're very excited about engaging this architecture firm. And I just want to thank Bob and his staff and the folks who sat on the selection committee. It was an RFP process, and as I think this board knows, when we go through that process, we first and foremost designate on the sort of the technical side who we'd like to select, and then we negotiate price. And I want to congratulate Bob because he always gets the best price possible for CUNY, and I think he did that in this case as well. So as I said at the outset, we're very excited about this project. And while we're on Staten Island, I just want to point out to the board that we closed on our financing, or in the process of closing.
We have March 1st.
On our financing for the new dorm out at the College of Staten Island. HDC approved the project last week, or was it last week? Yeah. Last week. And this will be about a $60 million bond offering, $61 million, around that area. And we are ready to go. As soon as the financing closes, we're going to begin construction. So there's a lot of exciting things happening on the campus at the College of Staten Island. Not only this new building that we hope to get constructed, but the dorm as well.
That's great. Yeah, this firm, the name is new to me.
Yes.
Is there something distinguishing about this particular firm?
They're a large firm, about 8,000 people.
Mhm.
They've done work at Brookhaven. They've done work at Cornell. They're kind of newer to the New York market, and they've done work internationally as well as the rest of the country. They really do specialize in high technology type of buildings. So that's what they're doing with Cornell in that center here. And they're trying to do some work with Columbia. They've done work with Brookhaven. They came across very well. I mean, there were two people on the selection committee from College of Staten Island, one person that runs their data center and one of their vice president. We had 2 or 3 people on it. And Robert Santos from CCNY joined us also. We set up a committee that includes 1 or 2 people from the college, per se, 1 or 2 or 3 people from our central office. And we always put someone from another college on the committee because they could be the next one up in the box anyway, and it's good to basically have a different perspective. So it worked very well, and the fee negotiation was very interesting. I think that we reduced their proposal by about $2 million.
Okay, good.
So,
I know Marcelo looked, but, what we're finding is the firms are very hungry out there. And, if you negotiate with them because they're eager to get the work, you can negotiate the number down.
Right.
$2 million in our pocket versus their pocket is something that we'll do every time.
What a negotiation.
Yep.
Well, kudos on that. Any other questions?
Yes, has a budget been approved for the construction of the building?
No, it has not, and nor has it been appropriated. We got money, what was the amount, Gwen, that we originally got? For this
think it was
$11 million. And as is typical of our larger projects like this, DOB will give us, money to start the design, and then over time, we start to get appropriations toward the goal of building the building.
let me just add something to that, though. We will take the design through the conceptual design and possibly through design development. I will not start the construction documents for the building until we're very sure that we've got the money into construction. Because things can change, and I don't have to redo those things twice.
Right. What's a rough estimate for the cost of this building?
Rough, 200 plus, rough number.
Probably about $1,100, $1,200 a square foot is what our science buildings, they can go as high as $1,500 a square foot. Because of the labs and the type of HVAC system you need, that's what sort of rides up the price a little bit.
And College of Staten Island has some issues associated with bringing enough power onto the campus in different locations. This building will be fundamentally in the center of the campus, per se, so we're going to have to do some infrastructure work to get some services there.
And sometime it would be good for us to see pictures and
Absolutely.
designs. And all that.
There's a map in
As
here.
we develop, we will basically certainly present that to everyone.
Yeah, that's good. Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a
I
second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much, and good work on the negotiations. Okay. The next item is the resolution for the construction fund authorizing the Guardia Community College Center 3 building facade design project 2118. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Construction Fund approves the selection of the architectural firm of Mitchell Gargula Architects, LLP, to provide professional services as required for the Center 3 building facade design project, community project number LG 035-010 at LaGuardia College, and also LaGuardia Community College. And also be it further resolved that the Construction Fund authorizes the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York to enter into a contract with the selected consultant for such services.
Center 3 is probably one of the largest buildings that CUNY has in its repertoire of almost 300 buildings. It's a very old building, built in the 19th century. It was a manufacturing building. It actually was so large that the trains went into the building themselves. They didn't park outside the building, the trains went into the building. We have discovered that the terracotta facade of the building is spilling, it's coming off, it's deteriorated to the point that it is actually falling off the building. In addition, we've had some issues with the windows at Center 3. So we have lots of problems with this building. And we are going to have to replace the terracotta facade of this building. We will need an architect to help us design the new facade. Mitchell Jurgala has done a lot of work for CUNY. They are a known entity. On the campus of Queens College, they did, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, they did Powdermaker Hall. And they did the extension to Remsen, which just opened a couple of years ago. And they are also the architect that's been selected to design the new Roosevelt Hall out at Brooklyn College. In addition, they do a lot of university work. They just designed and opened a new building for Rockefeller University. Unfortunately, you can't see the building that well because it's on the water side and not on the York Avenue side, but there is a picture of that building, and it is truly a spectacular building. We're very pleased to have them on board, and as I said, they've done work for CUNY before, so they're familiar with our needs and how we like to work. So we believe this is a very good choice.
Yeah, let me just add, they also were the firm that designed the new facade for the surrogate court down in Lower Manhattan.
really?
Because that building, when it was first put up in the late 60s, they had a problem with the facade stuff falling off. They had the same issue at the Harlem Hospital with some of the buildings that they were in the early 80s or late 70s. The facade was popping off, and the whole surrogate court needed to be redone, the whole facade on that building. And Mitchell Jurgala did a very nice job. It's a very nice building.
Is there any thought to the approach they're going to take around the facade? I mean,
Well,
in
they're
terms
gonna
of
try to-
ensuring that it fits into.
Yeah, they will try to make it look very contextual. The floor plates on this building are 80,000 square feet. So each floor is 80,000 square feet. Like a building is about 100,000 is not a small building. So we have 8 floors of 80,000 square foot per floor. It's a huge building. I mean, it's probably one of the largest, if not the largest, in the CUNY system, as Ira said. So, and it's the old Nabisco factory building that's, you kind of see it directly as you come across the Queensboro Bridge. So,
Koch Bridge.
huge building, totally surrounded by scaffolding to avoid things from the terracotta paint falling down.
Is this on Van Dam Street?
No,
It's on Jackson.
Okay.
Jackson.
When you come off Street,
Right.
if you look to your right, you'll see there's
Okay.
Center 3
Yeah.
right there.
That's Center 3. It's got the IDCNY. That's the building we're talking about.
And while we're on LaGuardia, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I thought some of you may have read in the newspaper about an initiative for LaGuardia. Maybe you want to talk about the hotel project while we're on LaGuardia.
Oh, yeah, that-
Sure, there's a parcel, there's actually a map in the booklet to the west of Center 3, which is currently an at-grade parking lot. And the central office came up with the idea of exploring sites that would be appropriate for building a hotel. That would be sort of a revenue-generating venture for CUNY, but it would also have ties to some programmatic
Does it have a
ties.
garage?
It was a garage, and it probably will have a garage.
You can't park there.
I know.
Yeah, no, now it's at-grade parking. So we did, we went out with an RFP a couple of weeks ago to 4 firms, consulting firms, to hire one of them to help us explore the whole idea of putting a hotel on this site.
There are 2 major academic programs in hotel management.
Oh.
One is at New York City Tech.
Tech.
The other one is at Kingsborough. The idea would be that there would be also a program at LaGuardia. LaGuardia would be the home campus of this new enhanced hotel management program. One of the reasons that we are looking at the LaGuardia site, we have a number of sites that we were thinking about, but informally talking to folks, they all felt that Long Island City, right off the Queensboro Bridge, you can't get a better site than this. And as of right, you can build, what, 600,000?
Yeah, at least 500,000 square feet.
On the site,
Wow.
which,
You
no
would
hotel
need
would be
to
that
build all
big.
that.
But having said that, if we explore doing a public-private partnership, our hope would be that there maybe would be some cash thrown off so that LaGuardia could benefit, and maybe we can put some academic use in the building, or maybe a gym for LaGuardia. So these are different options
Right.
that we're
And
exploring.
we're in the early stages. We're going to bring a consultant on board in the next couple of weeks and then go through probably a 3 to 5 month planning, analytical exercise. And out of that, hopefully we will have a plan to move forward with a more official RFP that would be marketed to, open to the market of developers.
It's a great idea. I mean, hotel space has really increased in New York City over the last 5 years.
And in Long Island City.
Yeah,
I
in
have
Long
to
Island
say,
City also.
this Cranes first broke the story, and
Yeah,
then
they
the
did.
Daily News did a follow-up story. I have never seen so much attention called on a project that CUNY is not even, we haven't even solidified anything yet, and the calls that we've gotten, the interest, it's amazing. And there are 2 or 3 hotels going up in Long Island City as we speak. It's
Wow.
become a very hot area, and just as you said, there was a lot of hotel beds that were added in Manhattan, and now in Brooklyn and Queens, it's
So did
exploded.
Mr. Marriott come to see you?
Well, that's an one of the things that we learned through this whole process is that the Marriotts and the Hiltons don't any longer build their own hotels. What they do is they partner with developers,
Oh,
and
really?
then they sign a license agreement with those hotels. So I think that both a lot of developers and a lot of major hotel chains would be very interested in this site, or at least that's what we're hoping.
Who would manage it?
Well, that's an interesting point. Usually the hotel itself manages it. They usually get a contract for a period of time, and we're learning all the lingo about this industry. They would put their flag up, and that would be it. So usually what happens is they enter into an agreement, it could be 5 years, 10 years, whatever, and they manage it for that period of time. Although the hotel is not technically owned by the hotel chain, it's owned by a developer.
Starwood also is an interesting one to talk to
Exactly.
because they have a number of different brands.
Right.
Yep.
And
Right.
they could easily expand, either a W hotel or they have a number of different places that they could put there.
Yeah.
As well as, one of the things that we've been talking about is that, the university as a whole has so much demand and need for space to hold conferences and dinners. It would be sort of nice to have a hotel of our own that the university could use and coalesce around. So that's another discussion that we've
So
had.
you might have a conference facility there.
Exactly, exactly.
That's great. Certainly, whatever we do with Center 3, that's going to affect, the whole skyline. It's such a huge building. It can really just change the whole complexion of the area there.
Yep,
It could either be a monstrosity or it could be
Yeah.
something beautiful.
nice.
The City College, Warshak,
Yeah.
one could argue that 5 years ago, 7 years ago, it was a monstrosity. We just completed the facade on that job, Dazzling. The building looks spectacular from the outside. It really does look spectacular.
Looks totally different.
Totally
Really?
different.
Yep.
Good. Any other discussion? Any other questions? Can we have a motion to move?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. The next item has to do with the resolution of the construction fund authorizing the design, purchase, and installation of fire alarm systems and related work in Clapper Hall Science Building and Music Building, and also including a central monitoring station at Queens College. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Construction Fund authorize the Executive Director to execute a purchase order for the services to design, purchase, and install fire alarm systems in Clapper Hall, Science Building, and Music Building, including a central monitoring station at Queens College under existing New York State Office of General Services contract. The total cost of such services or purchases shall be chargeable to the State Capital Construction Fund, project number 308-720-9999, for an amount not to exceed $6 million. So, yeah. Wow, that's
It's a lot.
yeah.
Well, it's a lot of buildings.
Right.
I'm just gonna hand this over to Bob and Howie who will go through this, but let me just say that the bottom line is these buildings do not comply with the New York Building Code nor the Fire Code for the City of New York, and the systems are no longer functioning. And therefore, we have to comply and we have to do this project. And even if we weren't required by code, knowing that the systems are not working properly, we would go in anyway and do them.
When did we find this out?
What?
When did we find this out?
I can't tell you that. I mean, it's probably been this way for a while. I mean, we've been basically trying to work with the colleges to identify the fire alarm upgrade needs, and this one fairly recently came to us. And we've been taking to the board probably almost every board meeting 1 or 2 resolutions to improve the fire alarm systems on the campuses. So as we hear about it from the colleges, we kind of move it to the top and try to do it. We were very fortunate in that the state has a requirements contract with a number of firms to basically do the design, procurement of the devices, and installation, which makes it much easier than the way it used to be done. We'd actually go out and have to hire a design firm, and then you'd have to hire an electrical firm to put it in, and it took forever. It took forever, and this is much faster. And there are about 4 or 5 large firms, JCI, Honeywell, 2 others, Siemens, and there's 1 other large one, that have been competing. We're generating a fair amount of competition for doing this simplex, yeah. So there'll be more of these as we basically.
Well, that's kind of the root of my question. How are we surveying all the CUNY buildings to see if there are other buildings that are not in compliance or that have fire alarm systems that are not operating properly?
Well, they always
Isn't that a kind of a standard thing to do?
Yes, it is, and you would be surprised how many buildings do not comply with
Currently.
the building. Yeah, and fire code. But as Bob said, as it is now, in that case, some of them are working. It's just that they don't comply with the new
Is
code.
that because the laws changed?
Yes.
They work,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
if they're not working,
That's
So
what
you're
we-
saying they're
Fire watch.
grandfathered?
Yeah,
They're
but if they're not
No,
working,
no.
then
Let me just say, they're either working or they've got a fire watch. They have to have some fire protection in the building.
so
It's
a
not as if
guard
it's
being in
without
the
them.
building would serve as a fire watch, and
Right,
they'd be
yeah.
trained on how to get people out of the building.
Yeah, you explained that
Well, what's
in the
happened
previous
is that-
But
meeting.
this is the worst of all possible worlds.
Well,
It
it doesn't
doesn't
work.
comply and it doesn't
Yeah,
work.
yeah,
So
exactly.
So
Surprise
currently,
them.
there's somebody sitting in the,
you
They
got
have-
it.
They have to pay for a fire watch, but they pay for out of their operating budgets. We'd rather basically get a system that basically is compliant. The codes have changed over the last, they continually change. So, I mean, things could not be, they could be compliant, but they could not be meeting code. So we try to change those things. But if they're not working and they've got a fire watch, that's more impetus for us to try to make something happen.
I guess the judgment is a fire watch is not as,
It's expensive.
It's expensive.
It's
because you have to have a
expensive, it's
certain number
also-
of guards.
but is it as effective also? Is it?
Probably. Well, as effective as?
Yes.
Yes, I think it is.
Clearly, you want a state-of-the-art fire alarm system.
That works. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, are you a lawyer?
Well, there are 2 forms of liability. One is obviously you don't want people hurt. The other is fines. Now, we actually legally have always maintained, correctly I believe,
That we don't-
that CUNY is not legally subject to the New York City Fire Code. And occasionally they'll serve us with notice of violations and we'll contest it and it goes away. But
That's because DASNY built our buildings, right?
Right. And
So-
because
so
we're really
you're
more
under
of
the
a
state
we're a
compliance.
state entity.
Exactly.
However, not long before I got to CUNY, so it must be maybe 12 years ago, the board sort of adopted a pretty strong policy that although legally we're not required, we should do everything we can to bring ourselves in compliance
Yeah, that's right.
with the New York City Fire Code. And so we did.
It's a stronger code.
Yeah, it's a better code.
Let me
yeah.
just, for the senior colleges, this is very straightforward. We have the money, we can advance the projects. The same is not always true on the community colleges.
Mm.
Specifically, Bronx Community College's fire alarm system, dates back 50 years probably, and they can't even get replacement parts for a lot of it anymore. And we're struggling now with that system up there, trying to figure out how we do a contract, because the city funds to advance aren't necessarily there, and that's got to match city state. That's the problem. And we're trying to figure out how to, that fire alarm system, they cannibalize systems. They basically got one guy that's been there from the beginning who knows how to jerry-rig things.
Right.
And if that doesn't happen, that system, they wind up on fire watch all the time.
Mm.
Just wish that we have maybe a more proactive way of addressing the issues around
We've
fire.
We've been pretty proactive.
Been
and
pretty proactive.
As Bob said,
Yeah.
if you go back and check the agendas, we brought Almost every meeting, the last few years, we brought a fire alarm system.
Who would the college come to?
Absolutely.
It's usually the facilities people who come to us and, tell us that, either, just as Bob said, the system is old and they can't get parts anymore, or, the fire watch is very expensive, it comes off the expense side of their budget, and, they want to proceed with the capital program.
Sometimes, I mean, that's larger, but this is when there's it's like at City Tech, they were doing fire alarm, we just finished the system out there in all their buildings, but they were doing fire watch, Miguel the vice president couldn't wait to stop having to make those payments.
Right. That's like 3 or 4 full-time jobs.
You got it.
That's right.
As well as at night, you need to keep a fire, it's 24/7, you gotta keep a fire watch.
Understood. But to the chairman's point, is there a way to communicate with all the facilities managers across all the campuses to have them report back what is the status of your fire systems and its compliance with the city code?
I think pretty much we have that.
You do that?
Do you have a
We
list
have
like
that,
that?
yeah.
Because I know that we brought, but every meeting over the last 3 years, you have brought stuff before the
Yeah.
board. We know that there's activity, but by proactive, I mean, something, as a trustee is mentioning, that would have, where we could see a list, and we would know exactly, areas of criticality, and we would have a plan to address them, whether it's at the community college or at the senior college.
We can put something like that together. I think it's a little bit of time. We'll put something like that together, though, because it's a good thing to have.
But once you have it, though,
We've got it,
you probably have to act on it. Once you have it, unless
Well, again-
you're paying the fire watch.
As long as we have the fire watch, we're okay, but when we
Okay.
get to the point where the systems aren't working, or as Bob said, they're so old
Mhm.
that we can't any longer get parts for them, we're gonna move quickly to, and also, especially since now we can use the general services contract, as Bob and Howie pointed out, it's gonna make these projects go that much faster, because it's all in one, we don't have to bid it out separately.
We have developed a very good working relationship with the fire department in terms of, as we do projects, we always have to file with the fire department. Sometimes the rest of the building is not complying with the new code, and we've worked out some things, but we've never compromised on the safety on the campuses. So, I mean, we will basically reach out and try to put a list together by campus, what the status is, and we'll come back to that. That's
It seems like something, like we're going to have a new administration on the mayoral side soon. And so I know that what we did a few years ago, we had some type of a list like that, and we used that to help lobby for more funds.
Critical maintenance.
Yeah, so because I remember I was involved.
Like the Bronx, Kingsborough. I don't recall one at LaGuardia, maybe because we've addressed the issue there, but each of them have those on the list, and some funding in some cases is already sort of trickling in.
There have been a
so,
number of the hostos.
yeah, and hostos, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, since it's expensive, you would think that these campuses
They've all
would be
been
hollering
pressing
for
forward,
help.
Absolutely.
I assume some of them are hollering.
The Hostos project, that was a very good one, very
Yeah,
aggressive.
this was very aggressive. I mean, that was, they've been doing 4 buildings and different systems.
That's the other problem, some of the buildings some of the campuses aren't tied into one system, because there are different phases when the buildings were built, and the older systems couldn't tie into the newer systems, like at Hostos, where they didn't communicate. So now what we're doing,
Trying to do it all together.
so that it's one system.
I move we adopt this resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Thank you very much. And I think that it's a discussion that's worth us continuing to stay on top of. I mean, I know that, certainly the fund is doing a great job in addressing these issues, but what I get concerned about is any vulnerability. We just don't want that to happen. And so, the next item is the resolution of the fund authorizing the construction services contract for the Bursar office renovation at Kingsborough Community College. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Construction Fund. You don't have that one?
No.
No.
Number 5?
Our number 5 is the legal services requirements.
Yeah.
That must have been pulled out. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Go to that book.
You go to this slide.
Bob, where did I see it?
We did it.
You
I
don't
saw
have-
it
so
someplace.
you pulled number
Remember I
5?
said about Leon?
That number 5 was done at the last meeting.
Oh, okay.
That's why I
saying.
rings a bell.
Okay. Okay, no problem.
Different number 5.
Okay, so resolve therefore that the Board of Trustees authorizes the construction fund to execute the 8 legal services contract requirement contracts for professional services to be used on an as-needed basis. Is this the correct one?
Yes.
Yes.
And that the contract shall be subject to approval as performed by the fund's general counsel. And what I'd like to do is to ask the general counsel to just enlighten us on this item.
Sure. So, as you know, our statute provides that CUNY personnel can provide services to the construction fund, and most of us sitting around the table have dual capacities with the construction fund and with CUNY. In the legal services area, my office of the general counsel at CUNY provides services to the construction fund in the facilities area without really much distinction whether the work is for the construction fund or whether it's for CUNY, because it's often a matter of happenstance who's holding the contract. And they provide very good service, and since they labor in semi-obscurity, I thought I'd mention their names today. On the real estate side, we have Linda Miles and Gustavo Ordonez, and on the construction side, we have Frank Prescott and Ricky Miller. As we've begun to manage our own projects, a couple areas have arisen where we needed some outside help. And of course, we know lawyers in these areas because in the DASNY managed contracts, DASNY retains outside lawyers, and we've worked very nicely with them, and DASNY has a very good panel of lawyers. And so we thought in a smaller way we would duplicate the practice of DASNY to have a panel of law firms in a couple selected areas where my office doesn't necessarily have the expertise, so that we're ready if and when the occasion arises. So the 2 areas in question are, first, construction litigation. Doesn't happen in every project, but it's not a rare event at the end of a big construction project for one of the contractors or subcontractors to have a grievance
Or lien.
or lien that they want to litigate. And the other area where, and my office is just not equipped to, I think actually I have some expertise in this area, but you really need to be set up. These are big, complex litigations that often last for years, and we're just not set up to do that. So using outside firms, there's some of the same firms, in fact, that DASNY makes a lot of sense. And then in the real estate area, although I have 2 excellent real estate lawyers, in the area of sort of complex real estate transactions, particularly involving public-private partnerships, we have found it useful over the last few years to use outside firms. So we did, under the expert guidance of Jeff Weinstein and his group, we did an RFP. We did a whole interview process. The response was terrific. We got a large number of very, very fine law firms responding, and we went through the usual RFP process, and we picked a group of them in these 2 areas. Actually, there's a couple firms that qualified in both areas, and they're really terrific firms, and some of them we've worked with before, some are new. It's also sort of a mixture of large firms and small firms, particularly in the construction litigation area. It's sort of an interesting, slightly arcane expertise, and there tend to be sort of these boutique firms that do it and do it very well. Some of the boutique firms then get gobbled up by bigger firms, and so you have some big firms doing that work as well. But we have a very nice group of firms. There was a quite easy consensus among the selection committee as to which ones were at the top of our list. We won't all these firms in the course of the 3 years, but it's nice to have them and to know that we have some alternatives. Sometimes you work with a lawyer and you like that lawyer very well, but something comes up and that lawyer or that firm is very busy, and you don't feel like you'll get quite as responsive services as you've had. You know, that you have another firm or 2 that you can turn to. So it was actually a very pleasant, interesting process, talking to these firms, finding out how they work and what services they can provide, and we're very pleased with the outcome.
In terms of MB and WE, how did you do there?
We reached out. I participate in both on the city side and the DASNY side in various almost annual conferences where of course, in my area, it's law firms, but IRIS also is involved with construction firms and architectural firms and things like that. And so over the course of years of attending those, I had a list that I specifically reached out to and invited them to submit RFPs. So the outreach was very, very good. The results were not in the sense that I don't think of the 6 or 8 firms that we wound up with, I don't think any of them is a minority or women-owned firm, although at least in most of the firms, the number of minorities and women within these firms is much, much higher than when it was, and certainly when I started out as a lawyer. Particularly women. There's been improvement with respect to minorities as well, but not at the same speed or to the same extent. And of course, it breaks down old-fashioned barriers as well. I mean, you find women construction litigators and women real estate lawyers, and that was not true a generation ago. So I think we did what we could, but at the end, obviously, we had to make the decision based on the best possible legal services.
Any other discussion on this item?
Yes, can you give us an idea of what the cost of this is?
Well, of course, you don't know until you have the matter. The
retention cost?
The retention cost is zero. I mean, all we're doing is putting them on a panel.
I see.
They each have submitted fee structures to us, and we negotiated a little bit in a few cases. The fee structures vary widely. It's actually very surprising. Some firms are really used to dealing with government, and they have a fee structure that's priced for that. Others, not so much. And so when we decide in a particular matter who to go to, we will take that into account. There is, but quality matters too, and particular expertise. And so we have found ourselves occasionally expensive firms on a project that is really, really obscure legal issues, and where that firm is the only one who's done this before. And we just figured, all right, we're just going to have to swallow our...
That's generally where the higher fees are.
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy to say, though, that sometimes if you monitor, as we do very carefully, the hourly rate isn't necessarily the determinative thing. And so one of the firms that we've used quite a lot, where the hourly rates are very high, they're also very disciplined about not wasting time. And since I review the bills when they come in on a monthly basis, I look at this. And so some firms that look like they're very expensive, at the end of the day, if their rates may be, let's say, 30% higher, but at the end of the day, they're only coming in 10 or 15% higher because they're just really good and disciplined about keeping the hours down and not wasting time. So we monitor this pretty closely. I've been doing this for a long time. I was on the other side once, so I know how this works, and we try to keep it as cheap as we can. I confess I'm probably not as good a negotiator as Bob Lemieux is, but I monitor the hours very carefully.
The other thing is if Rick and the staff really do an excellent job for us. Rick joked once that he's learning a whole new area of law that he didn't have expertise in before because of the projects. But let me just say, some of these public-private partnerships that we have engaged in and we're attempting to engage in now, they are very complex real estate transactions. And we have found on the deal side, having a good lawyer, a lawyer who has this as their expertise, really both cuts down on the amount of time you have to spend negotiating, helps us in terms of structuring the deal and gives us a level of expertise that, but for that firm we wouldn't have. As an example, Central's gonna be moving, we're gonna be moving into new headquarters, and we're doing a leasehold condominium. And very few lawyers in the city have done leasehold condominiums for leases, for commercial space. Turns out that one of the law firms that Rick had on retainer in the past, the partner, she was an expert in this area. And, even the other side asked that we bring her to the table because she had done the only other leasehold condominium for a commercial space previously. So it saved us a tremendous amount of time, angst, and energy to have this firm at the table with us. So, we're very pleased that we have this expertise because we think in the end it's going to save us money.
That's great. Makes sense.
I'm glad to hear she had the
Yes,
expertise.
Absolutely. Right, Rick?
Any other questions? Can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. And the next item that I have is the report from myself. And the next meeting, I guess we'll have to take a look at that. The 26th is not going to be good for me, so it might have to be either the 23rd or 27th. So if somebody could just take a look and organize that.
Okay.
Of April.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we have a sufficient agenda
Items,
to bring
yeah.
you all together.
Okay, good. Thank you. And so why don't we, Iris, why don't we go to your
Sure,
report?
I'm going to be very brief because I spent a lot of time talking at this meeting already. Let me just
We
say,
never tire of listening to your stories. Okay, really.
let me just say that we are really very excited in this division. We have in the summer for the fall term. Bob and I visited 2 of the projects just this week. As everyone knows, CUNY Law is churning away here, and matter of fact, tomorrow we're going to go out on the site. That project will be done in a couple of months, and the law school will move in over the summer. Fitterman Hall will also be opening for the September term, and if you're in Lower Manhattan, if you're at Ground Zero, you just have to look up and you see our beautiful building
really
there.
good.
And I have to say that the staff here really did an excellent job in terms of really getting Fitterman to this point. And it's going to be a very exciting opening, not only for CUNY, but for the community downtown, because there is space in the building for the community to use, and I think it's space that they will really appreciate having in Lower. The new academic building and library is opening, and I think people's breath will be taken away when they see this structure. We don't build buildings like this anymore in academic space. Robert Stern has just done an unbelievable job matching the building to the existing buildings that were done by McKim and White. And the details that go into the building, it's just going to be terrific for the
When would that
students.
be open?
It's going to be opened in August as well.
Is that the building that's visible from the FDR?
Yeah, from the
Has a metal roof.
Major Deegan is coming
Major
down.
Deegan.
Major Deegan. Yeah,
North end of that campus.
I'll have to look
for
at
the
it.
west,
If
yes.
you're coming south on the Deegan, look to your left and you'll see the building. It's very prominent, and particularly now when there's no leaves, you get to see the building very well.
The new president must be thrilled.
Yeah.
She is. And I think, I don't know if this board knows, but the CUNY board has named the main reading room in honor of Carolyn Williams,
Oh,
who
really?
really, I think, deserves a lot of credit for just not letting up and really lobbying to make sure this building got built. So the main reading room in the library will be named in honor of Carolyn, and it's really, it's apropos of the effort that she put in to this project.
Is there anything named after Roscoe Brown, since he's
He
such
has,
a prominent?
the other building is named.
Oh, he
for him.
does?
Yes, the student
Center.
center and the cafeteria.
He is the Tuskegee Airman, right?
That building is named for him. He has a
Okay.
building named for him. Carolyn only has a reading room named for
What a
her.
comparison.
We've gotten a little tougher in our requirements
Yes.
when there's no money involved.
And And the last building that's going to open this September is the new science building out at Lehman College. And as I said, Bob and I were out there this week, and this science building is really going to be transformative for Lehman. It's going to be LEED Platinum, I think, by the time we're finished. It has just so many sustainable elements, we're now beginning to think the second phase, because there's a second science building that's scheduled to go in Lehman, and we have to move some other buildings to make room, and we're working on that. This requires a lot of moves and temporary moves, but we're on it. We're dealing with it. So we have 4 spectacular buildings opening.
Quite a few openings coming up.
It is, and it's really terrific. What? Oh, there's a ribbon cutting tomorrow. Thank you, Howie. Out at York College. We rebuilt their nursing labs out at York. They are simulation labs, and I was out there a few weeks ago, and the labs are really 21st century. They have both regular patients, and they have a maternity ward where it's unbelievable.
If you'd like to go deliver a simulated baby,
Oh my
it's
God.
quite an experience.
There's little babies in there, crying, people screaming, yelling.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Interesting.
I think I said before that we have a number of buildings where we're in design now. At Brooklyn College, the new Roosevelt Hall Science Building, 180,000 square foot instructional science building for Brooklyn College. We just voted on the College of Staten Island. We're very excited out at York. We are finishing up the schematic designs for a new student services building as well as a conference center. Eniad, who is an architectural firm, it's the old Jim Polshak firm that's done a lot of work for CUNY. They just finished Roosevelt House for us.
Oh, yes.
And they are working, they did Medgar Evers, the new academic building, and they were selected by the City College Foundation to design the new Colin Powell Center at City College. As a matter of fact, I think that Marcia is just over the top on this design that they've come up with.
York.
Yes. It's a college, it's a campus that is wanting and deserving of a signature building that will really liven up the campus, because all of us have been out there. We know that the campus is a little flat, and it's really this building will put York on the map. And the last design that we're involved in is the Fitzgerald Gym at Queens College. The firm has started to work on the new design of the gym, which is in need of a lot of work.
So it'll be a renovation or a new building?
It's going to be a renovation, but we just finished a renovation of the Colden Center at Queens, as well as the Goldstein Theater. And if you're driving on the Long Island Expressway and you look to your right, you would think we put up a brand new building in terms of a new facade and the lighting and the
Where is this, near Casino Boulevard?
It's on,
It's near.
Casino Boulevard.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I saw it, yeah.
Right behind the sign.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right.
Behind the sign.
It's really spectacular, and when it's lit up at night, you would really think that the university invested in a whole new building, and we just didn't renovate it. I'm not saying just didn't, but there are new bathrooms there. There's, the whole lobby area has been redone, the office area at Colden, so it's really great. At Brooklyn College, we have started to demolish Gershwin Hall, and Bob is telling me that it's going to be done by the end of March, or
End of March, the building will be done.
Can I get tickets?
Why don't you come down? We'll take you out there. That's not a problem.
and then we will start to build in earnest the new Performing Arts Center at Brooklyn College. Just one last thing. We are very excited about a new public-private partnership that we're hoping will come to fruition. This is a new science building for Hunter College. We are partnering with Sloan Kettering to build on a site that EDC, which is part of the City of New York, put an RFP out for this summer. It's on 73rd Street and the FDR Drive. It's an old sanitation garage site. One of the reasons why Sloan Kettering was so eager to partner with us is because we own another site where the sanitation garage can go, which is down at Brookdale. Talking about complicated transactions, I think Jennifer and Rick would probably agree this is probably one of the more complicated transactions that we are attempting to get done here. Sloan Kettering plans on building on this site a 500,000 square foot cancer hospital, but it's on an outpatient basis, not inpatient, as well as Hunter would get about 400,000 square feet on the site to build their new science building. And I think if one looks back at the decade of the sciences that the Chancellor announced, the one true center of excellence, which is Hunter, has been the one campus that we have desperately tried to find a site to build a new science building. And you know, it's just because of where Hunter is, the proximity in the Upper East Side, it has been almost impossible for us to, until this moment, to find a site to build a new science building. So we're just at the beginning of the process. This is going to be a long journey. Both Sloan Kettering and CUNY don't anticipate the buildings will not open until maybe 2019, 2020. They've got to do a full ULURP, and we don't know what's on the site below. We know there was a sanitation garage there. We don't know the soil conditions. But literally, this is Hunter's last hope, at least for the next generation on the Upper East Side, because we have looked at every site, as have all the hospitals, and it is very hard to find a site where you could build a 500,000 square foot building on the Upper East Side. So you'll be hearing more about that, and we're hoping that this will be will answer Hunter's hopes in terms of getting a new science building. Just one last item. We are working on all the campuses doing critical maintenance projects, and right now we have almost 500 projects going on, about 477 projects going on all the campuses. So
amazing.
We are very busy, and we want to really. I also want to publicly thank Mike and his staff and DASNY. They are doing the yeoman's share of those critical maintenance projects, and they have really worked very well with us to try and get these projects moving. So, Mr. Chairman, that's where we
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask one question? Are you doing, is there anything else to be done on the CUNY School of Public Health for 119th Street? And
Nothing
no, it's
else.
finished.
It's finished. They're
Okay.
up there. They're loving the space.
Yeah.
Students are there. The faculty is there, and this was a very successful project, both from the CUNY viewpoint as well as public health and social work.
Nobody said anything about it.
Not me, so I don't know.
Okay.
Did you get any complaints?
I was in there, froze.
Froze, really? Maybe
I mean, they're settling in, so they're
they're settling
tinkering
in.
with
That's
the
the term
various
they
systems,
use.
but we've heard they're happy.
It's interesting, like, we've not heard anything about, usually if you don't hear anything, there's something bad going on, because nobody ever tells you things are great, but either in the building, educational building, or in the residential space that we built on 118th Street. All we hear is very positive feedback. So.
I was at 119th Street with Jean, the Brookdale Center there, and there was no heat in the room when we had a meeting there.
Let's remember
She
one
said
thing.
we're settling
we
in.
build the buildings, the keys to the college department. We don't operate the buildings.
And you
Although
negotiate.
I'm meeting with President Reb of Hunter this afternoon. I'll tell her that there was no heat in the room. I'm sure of that.
That's important.
I also, Mr. Chair, I just want to point
Please.
out that I really need to publicly thank DASNY. Both Fitterman, Bronx Community College, and Lehman were all DASNY projects. That began a long time ago, and they, like us, recognize the importance of adding these buildings to the CUNY system. And again, CUNY law is one that we are doing ourselves, and Bob's staff has just done a great job here. So.
Okay, no, thank you very much for mentioning that, and also thank you very much for your report and for the fine work that you and your team are doing, each and every one of you around the table, playing no small part in making sure that this happens. So I just want to commend you from us at the board. Thank you very much for that. And Mike, we'd like to give you an opportunity to give a report.
I don't know if Howard's supposed to go next, but.
No, I have no.
Okay. I guess I could talk a little bit about facade work, since we're talking about Center 3. That's one of 24 projects that we're doing on facade at the present time, and it's probably about $110 million worth of work. There's probably 12 campuses that we're doing that type of work at. Bob had mentioned Marshak being completed now, which was kind of transformative of that building. Another one that's in construction now that's similar is at New York City College of Technology, the Voorhees building, and the facade being put on that building, which you'll never know it's the same building.
And when you go across the Brooklyn Bridge, it will stand out.
Right,
There'll be a
okay.
big sign that says CUNY.
Yes.
And another one, I think, is
How would that proceed? When would that be finished?
it should be finished by the end of this year.
Really?
Yeah, one facade is basically completed.
That's on the east side. You don't see that coming across the bridge. It faces directly onto the Manhattan Bridge.
Okay.
Another one I guess is worth noting is Shepherd Hall, which we've been working with for longer than I do, probably 25 years or something like that, in stages. Again, that was a terracotta building, and it's turn of the century neo-Gothic. I guess everybody who's been to City College knows Shepherd Hall. We're completing what we call Phase 10, which is the stair pavilions. The next phases, 11 and 12, which are the final phases of that restoration, are very close to bidding. So maybe in a couple more years, we can actually probably start over again. Actually, got to do the roof after that. But it's been a very long time doing that building. But I think people can really appreciate the difference. I mean, we had terracotta flooring all the neo-Gothic buildings at City College 10 years ago. Now, all of the neo-Gothics along with the quad on the west side have been completed, and really the only one that's left is to finish Shepherd.
Also, we did a lot of work in Shepherd Hall because the School of Architecture used to be in Shepherd Hall. When they moved out now, the college had to re-envision what they wanted to do with that space.
This is that big,
This is the big
yeah,
campus.
where
It's
the,
building on the
yeah,
east
where
side
the
of
controller is
quad.
having, okay, all right.
Yes.
And I mean, all of the original campus up there was built turn of the century. And Shepherd is the last building, the last of those original Gothic buildings, the renovation. This is the 12, the phases 11 and 12. I mean, 12 phases is a long time to do a building, so it's a huge building. But that whole campus looks. It's been given a rebirth over the last 15 years or so, and this will finish it up. We've got the money, we've applied the money. And Mike said we're going to bid that piece out, and it'll be done. So it'll be done with the building.
Good. Thank you very much, Mike. Really appreciate it. And again, thank you very much for the partnership. We're enjoying the partnership. If there are, I guess the only
two
other
quick
question.
With all the technology and science buildings that have been going up recently and continuing to come on board, is there an effort to learn from the early construction projects, to learn what did work, assuming nothing's perfect? How does that work? What is the process there to take the learnings from the early construction projects and apply them to the newer ones? Because you have different architectural firms involved.
They do, and as Bob and Mike will tell you, science is done differently now, and the requirements that the both in teaching labs and research labs, requirements have changed dramatically. And one thing that we are very in touch with is the end users on the campuses, the faculty, the chair of the various committees. So we are in constant dialogue with them as to where the trends are going.
I understand that, but my question is more, you just finished, for example, a science and technology building at Medgar Evers College.
Yes. Nothing has changed since then. What we built at Medgar Evers, if you go on the other campuses, you'll see similar labs to what we built at Medgar.
My question is there an effort to assess these, for example, Medgar Evers College's science and technology building to determine what things could have been done better and then apply those to this next round of science
Yeah.
buildings.
And I think answer it within this context also, because there were a number of things a few years ago in terms of our approach and things that we considered and things that we're now considering that we didn't before around environmental, the ambience of the building, to the community. So talk about that, because I think that some of the things that the trustee is talking about, we have made a turn in some areas, so it might be.
Let me just kind of explain the way we're organized in terms of how we do what I would call program management, which is the development of the projects. I have 5 assistant directors, each of whom is an architect, and they basically interact very closely. So if they're doing a project, there's continual dialogue amongst them in terms of what's working and what's not working. I have 1 assistant director who's basically responsible for science lab renovation across all the campuses. And we get the feedback, and we interact, so we make the changes on the way that things are designed. We work closely with the faculty. Faculties are different in different colleges and have different views how this stuff works. We have tried to integrate a lot of the IT stuff that we learn about with the IT people centrally and with the colleges. So that's a continuing effort of involvement in the AV, IT kind of interactions. We learn from the feedback and we share it among the AVs and project managers, and we force a lot of that information into the consultants that we hire to design. They bring their expertise, but we have the experience, so we kind of force them to understand that and react to it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not shy about telling people what we're not. Trust me.
The other
I
piece,
remember.
wait, the
I
other piece
understand.
of that's not represented, Megan Moore Wilkes is in charge of planning. So she's always looking at, and her group is always looking at different ways to deliver service. So they're always looking, especially for science, at basically what's going on around the country. So attached to each one of his ADs, there's a planner for every single
So an
college.
example, when we build laboratory buildings these days, research laboratory, it is no longer a rabbit warren of individual faculty members having a series of rooms that they do their thing. It's really open bench, which is the state of the way most research institutes are doing. So the ASRC building has open labs, and basically you get a number of benches depending on how many research grants you're bringing in. And it's easy, otherwise you've got a room, you've got a space that may not be supported. So that stuff is always part of our design.
And if I could just add non-science, so what have we learned over the last 5 years? We've learned that our students are spending a longer amount of time on our campuses. And so we have to provide student spaces for them to sit with their computers, spaces for them to maybe have a cup of coffee, spaces that they can work in groups because they're staying on the campus and they're going to work with 2 or 3 other students. We need to have a lot of technology on the campuses. Stands where there are computers set up and they can plug in and get what information that they need. So we've, from our master plans and talking to the faculty and talking to the students, we're designing buildings in different ways, where if you go to Fitterman, which you will when we open it, there's an enormous amount of student space on all the floors for students to congregate and hang out. We also found out that, from our perspective, we don't like to put now escalators in buildings. Sometimes we have to, but we're putting a lot of grand stairs in. We're encouraging people to use the stairs and not put escalators in. We have to put elevators in because that's the building code, but we're trying to hide the elevators a little bit and let people sort of navigate around the building if they can. So, these are different things that we're picking up. The last thing is we're building larger lecture halls because the colleges have so much in terms of students that need to take the core courses that we're now putting in larger lecture halls so that they can be accommodated. So these are just a few things that we've picked up in the last 5 years that we're now putting into the buildings.
Also, when you sit on a selection committee, it's really interesting because all these architectural firms who have been basically working across the country, they bring in every new idea to impress you because they want to be selected.
Right.
So Bob's architects sit there. We have the planning people who are basically collecting information. Then we get it from the architectural firms that we hire, and so we've got like an array of where we get information from for change.
I think Iris is really right. The social space or the space for students to spend more time. I mean, John Jay's, the building we built at John Jay's is a perfect example. It's loaded with staircases and places where people can sit and work, and the place is filled with people just basically doing their work. I mean, it's the intent is to keep them on the campus in the building. It's one of the things that we're really stressing in terms of the design for the new building. York, fit them in, BMCC. All of our new buildings are really, they really do stress that in terms of.
Do they stress athletic facilities?
No, athletic
It's
facility
interesting.
is not, I mean, if we build a gym, or this is a gym, there is an athletic, but we're really talking about social space where people can actually sit down with their laptop and work in the hallway or in a lounge or someplace, and, you know.
Mhm. But they
Students
say
want
the
more
exercise for the
They
brain.
want more informal space, and that's,
Yeah, they
that's
do.
what,
Yeah, you've mentioned that before, and I think that's what's different than, I guess, some years ago.
Yeah.
And, in working with ENIAD in the New York building, that was a big element that we had to work with the architects on, because it's going to be a student services building. They need to have space to hang out, work, do whatever they need to do, and then go to their classes.
My last question is a short one, I
Let
think.
me just stay with that one, though, for a
Yeah.
second and give you another perspective, which I think is important, especially since I've been on this fund and also I'm on the larger board. And so there's another view that we have, regarding this work. And some of it's preceded many of the people who are in the room. But it speaks to the fact that the approaches, as I'm looking at the agenda and all of the things that are coming up before us, there's a strategic thrust that's in place now that had not been as evident before, that's more in line with the strategic thrust of the university, especially when we talk about the decade of the sciences. And so the decade of the sciences also has us looking at where we're putting buildings in place, what the buildings are going to do, how they're aligned with the community, not only with people, but also from an environmental standpoint. We're looking at how it accommodates students and community. So there are a number of those features that are in place. In addition to like the large projects, there are all of these, the maintenance pieces, which we're putting a lot more work into that now than we had before. So it's very evident that we're moving in a strategic way, and so it's not just put something here or put something there. And so, having been here for a while, I can see you can begin to see the differences in how we've approached this. And I think you would appreciate that, from the way, you would view things, from a corporate standpoint.
Mm-hmm. So over the next 10, 20 years, I guess we should see more science and technology talent in this town, which I know Mayor Bloomberg is pushing for pretty big. Is it fair to assume that the Louis Armstrong Museum is pretty much dead, way in the back burner? What's happening?
No, it's not dead. I think the issue is that the zoning change is going to have to go back and now design the space to comply with the zoning rules in that area. So it's not dead. They just need to make those accommodations on the space to be able to comply.
Wasn't there a property you were trying to buy in order
We
to?
were trying to buy it. The person wanted an
Exorbitant
exorbitant amount of money, one that we couldn't justify with the appraisal that we had on the property. I think it was almost double what the appraisal came in. But the building itself, the original building that we were going to build, has to now comply with the zoning change.
Requires, if they don't get a property with that property, you have to redesign it. Almost entirely.
Oh, boy.
It's not a good situation, but it's not dead.
It's not dead. We just need to work through the kinks and get it moving again.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other questions? I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you very much, and thank you again for all of the work that you're doing. Really appreciate it, and enjoy it. We'll connect again, and I think at the next time it would be good to have a few pictures of some of the projects and things that are being planned, like the openings and stuff. Yeah, because it helps things come together.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bob, I want to ask you, they don't include